Parenthood, that's something else, isn't it? That's something else. I saw this video on social media a couple weeks back, and I thought, this would be a great way to kick off this discussion because it perfectly reflects what parenthood is like. And some of you might have seen this video. I'm going to start and stop the round and kind of color commentate as this video progresses. So let's see if this works. So I like to think that as the birthing process. And I'm going to explain it in a second. From a father's standpoint, when the child is, the entire birthing process, you start to see sides of your partner, literally and figuratively, that you've never ever seen before. And you're starting to think, what in the world am I getting myself into? And remind me, did we decide to have children? But from there it gets better. This is the point at which the baby arrives. And you meet the child for the first time. And I remember when this happened with my son, who's my oldest. And just a quick story, this is a true story. After my son arrived, they put him on my mother's chest, or my wife's chest, his mother's chest. He was crying, he was screaming, just like babies do, right? And there's something in me decided I'm just going to lean over and say his name. So I leaned over and said his name, and he stopped immediately. Aww. He opened up his eyes and he turned and looked right at me. Aww. From that point on, I knew this parenthood thing is going to be something awesome. Absolutely awesome. All right, well, let's see what else happened. So at that point, throughout life, there are times where we feel, this is awesome. Then there's times like, what is going on? How are we doing this, right? There are valleys, there are highs, but it's an absolute awesome ride. It is totally epic. And I wouldn't change it for the world. Would you guys agree? This isn't so bad. So, now, as if parenting wasn't enough, and as if it wasn't a full-time job, we also have full-time jobs to live up, right? Yeah. Full-time jobs back at the house, and then full-time jobs here at work as well. And I think we can all agree that it's a difficult balance. It's not unusual for us to feel that way. And I wanted to come with some examples or at least some research to demonstrate that we are not the only ones experiencing this. And I read this study from the Pew Research Center that talked about the challenges related to work-life balance. And they said that 52% of dads find it difficult to balance work and life. And then 60% of mothers find that to be the same. Something that I found interesting as well is that there's a little difference between mothers and fathers, but there's not a significant difference. I actually expected there to be a little bit more of a difference between how dads might feel versus mothers. So, as working parents, we are all in the same boat. Also excelling career-wise as well. So, this is a picture I took in my backyard of a cherry blossom tree. And I think it kind of reflects one of the key lessons that I've learned in regards to life, which is tied to work-life balance. If you know anything about cherry blossoms, they usually bloom in April, just for maybe a week or two. And outside of that, they're pretty dull, right? There's not much activity. At least this one, it was like a maroonish brown. I kind of forgot it was even out there. But bam, when April hit, there are a few things that were more beautiful than this tree. And it reminds me of a song that came out in the 60s. No, I wasn't alive there, but it's a very, very popular song called Turn, 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 if you know about that. And it's a poem that actually they took from the Bible. And it talks about seasons of life. And I found that I have to accept that there are different stages and there are different seasons of life. Experts explain this as well. Those explain that there are as few as 4 to 12 stages of life. So the lyrics, I was going to sing this for you guys.
Do it.
All right. Amanda would do a better job.
No, one man with that old school picture, you gotta sing.
To everything, turn. There is a season, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. But when you think about the lyrics, at least for me, there's so much truth to that. There was a period of time where I was a bachelor, I was single, I wasn't married, I didn't have any kids. I honestly only had to worry about myself. I found out though, after I got married, okay, I can't just, go off with the guys all the time. And I especially can't do that. Now that we have kids. Because there are different seasons. There are different, at least for my life, different stages in which I found I need to make some tweaks about things. I also found that it's okay for me to be different in areas because there are people who are in a totally different stage of life than me. And so there are just 3 key things that I kind of have taken in, that I applied, understanding that I might need to change with each season that I go through. Priorities. And a lot of this stuff probably isn't new to you guys, but if anything, I'm teaching myself as I'm sharing these observations. Priorities, obviously that's one, that the priorities change from one season to another. Before I met my wife, before I have kids, the priority was looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger with big muscles and working out in the gym all the time. It's funny how the incentive for that changed after I met my wife. After that, I didn't feel like I needed to do anything. It's like, put the ring on it, so I'm like, that's good. But understanding that people in different stages of life have different priorities. Some might be similar, some will be different. Another thing that I've really come to accept as well is there are different measurements of success, especially when you are in different seasons. So obviously as working professionals, there's success career-wise, but very much for me, one of the key priorities is seeing the success of my children, is seeing the success of my wife, and understanding that it requires my time and intentionality to help them with that process. Not everyone has to worry about those things, right? Some they can worry about other things, but as us parents, I feel like that's something that we must focus on. And it's been an important part of my life to support my family and others in that area. And then this last one is a really, really big one for me. I'm very athletic. I used to play sports. In high school, I played football. I played football in college at Michigan State University, in case anyone else is a Spartan in here. Go White, yeah. There's someone I heard that. So I've always been very, very competitive, wanting to beat people out. However, I've learned, okay, if coworker X is in a totally different place than me, they're really not my competition. Does that make sense? Let me try to put it in a different way. My competition is based upon my measurements of success. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mark Twain said it, I think, best. He said, comparison is a death of joy. And how I've interpreted that is, if you base your priorities on how everyone else, or what everyone else is doing, if you base your goals on what everyone else's goals are, if you base your measurements of success on what everyone else has as interprets success, if that doesn't apply to you, you're not going to reach that joy. And so what I have to continually remind myself is, what are my measurements of success personally, regardless of what others are doing? Because I know that if I am pursuing those areas, and if I'm making accomplishments according to those measurements, then I'm going to fulfill and be successful and obtain that joy.